that the Prime Minister has rightly, in my view, said that the appointment was a mistake, and he's apologised for that.
No. This is not the point I'm making. You're just saying anybody who had any sense, cared about this, thought about the women involved,
I'm just saying
would have taken a different decision. The Prime Minister had all that information at his disposal at that point. He still made the decision. So, is he one of the people who ignored the women?
Yesterday brought another difficult moment for Labour's media team during a live television appearance. A senior MP was put forward to defend Keir Starmer over the ongoing Mandelson-related controversy. But almost immediately, the argument began to unravel under scrutiny. What was meant to reinforce confidence instead raised further questions. The exchange quickly shifted from controlled messaging to visible strain.
Not to tell the Prime Minister that Peter Mandelson was not given the go-ahead by UK security vetting. That was wrong, that was a mistake, and that is why he's lost their confidence.
So, when the Prime Minister makes a mistake, knowing what everybody in the country knew, he can come along and say, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And we go, okay, fine. Yet, everybody else who makes a mistake, Robbins, McSweeney, Gray, lose their job. Why isn't he losing his job?
At the center of the issue is a simple but critical point. If the government places such emphasis on judgment, accountability, and safeguarding, then how did this appointment happen in the first place? That question remains unresolved. The defense offered doesn't seem to align with the standards being promoted, and that inconsistency is what's drawing attention. When the core argument doesn't hold up, the entire narrative starts to weaken.
Why did the Prime Minister appoint somebody who he knew at the time of appointment had been a friend of Epstein's, who he could have known if he had just read the paper or somebody told him, had stayed in Epstein's home?
What follows is a difficult sequence to watch. The responses become less direct, contradictions begin to surface, and the overall message loses clarity. Instead of strengthening the position, repetition seems to highlight the gaps even more. The longer it continues, the harder it becomes to maintain credibility. This is where political communication starts to break down under pressure.
I have a different view about who should be recommended for the posting.
By the time we're describing, it was clear that the Prime Minister wanted to make this appointment himself.
Stay with this, because the most telling moment isn't found in raised voices or interruptions. It's in the point where the explanation itself stops making sense. That's where the shift happens from defense to damage control. If you value straightforward political analysis without the usual filtering, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and follow along as we break it down.
Ollie Robbins.
Well,
a year ago, he was good enough to get the number 2 job running the country, and suddenly he's become a liability?
Yes, I think it was a real serious mistake not to tell the Prime Minister or the Foreign Secretary that the Foreign Office took a different view from UK security vetting, not just at the start.
I get that point,
I think that was wrong.
Let's just bear in mind,
that's why he lost.
You just said Peter
confidence.
Mandelson was the problem. The person who chose both Peter Mandelson and Ollie Robbins, actually, was the Prime Minister.
Peter Mandelson withheld information at the start of this whole thing, then repeatedly lied, and he is who I am angry with, because there has been in recent days no mention.
You say that he withheld information. Everybody in the country who could read a newspaper knew all the things that the Prime Minister then said was wrong with Peter Mandelson. Everybody knew it.
Let me just say this, and I will answer that question. But throughout all recent days, there's been barely any mention of who has really suffered from this, which is the women who were trafficked and abused by Jeffrey Epstein, and a man who at the heart of this covered up the information about his relationship here. But the Prime Minister, I think, is right to say, and the Foreign Secretary, that it was wrong not to tell them that he had not passed the UK security vetting, and he would not have been. He would not have been appointed if the Prime Minister had known that at the time.
If your case now is that everybody should have had the women concerned, the women who were exploited, who were trafficked by Epstein, everybody should have had those women at the front of their mind, and I agree with you.
Good.
Why did the Prime Minister appoint somebody who he knew at the time of appointment had been a friend of Epstein's, who he could have known if he had just read the paper or somebody told him, had stayed in Epstein's home, and who was still in contact with Epstein and would have had to say so if the Prime Minister had actually asked him? You
will know, Trevor, that the Prime Minister has rightly, in my view, said that the appointment was a mistake, and he's apologised for that.
No. This is not the point I'm making. You're just saying anybody who had any sense, cared about this, thought about the women involved,
I'm just saying
would have taken a different decision. The Prime Minister had all that information at his disposal at that point. He still made the decision. So, is he one of the people who ignored the women?
Absolutely not.
Well, he must have done it by your logic.
Let me tell you.
Why did he appoint Peter Mandelson?
Let me tell you this. I have never had a Prime Minister in my lifetime who has cared as much or has done as much about violence against women and girls.
You're still not answering my
girls,
question. If he cared so much, and this was such a big deal, why did he appoint somebody he knew was an associate of a convicted paedophile who stayed in his home?
Well, you will know that he withheld information about it, that he lied about the extent of his relationship. And that is why the Prime Minister...
Everybody in the country knew that.
That is why the Prime Minister said that appointment was a mistake and has apologised about it. And where we started on all of this, Trevor, rightly so, is you want to know why Sir Ollie Robbins lost the confidence of the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary. And the truth of it is, I think it was wrong not on such a serious and important and high-profile appointment not to tell the Prime Minister that Peter Mandelson was not given the go-ahead by UK security vetting. That was wrong, that was a mistake, and that is why he's lost their confidence.
So, when the Prime Minister makes a mistake, knowing what everybody in the country knew, he can come along and say, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And we go, OK, fine. Yet, everybody else who makes a mistake, Robbins, McSweeney, Gray, lose their job. Why isn't he losing his job?
Because the Prime Minister, on the big calls facing this country, has made the right calls. Whether that is on the war and saying that we will not get involved with a war with no clear objective and no clear exit plan, whether it is on the crucial issues of investing in the defence of this country. You asked me a question.
You've just told me you got it wrong.
Because on the fundamental judgments facing this country, whether it's on international issues, rebuilding our relationship with the EU, saying we won't get involved in the war, investing in our defence, or whether it's on domestic issues, lifting children out of poverty, tackling violence against women and girls, all of the big fundamental issues facing this country.
Honestly,
the Prime Minister has made the right job. Well, that's how I look at it. You ask me.
You can list all of those things, but we are discussing
yes, I can, and I'm very proud to.
The appointment to the most important diplomatic post that the country can offer, in a situation where we are dealing with what your colleagues have said to me
and when he found out
is a capricious and unreliable ally, somebody who sees the most sensitive documents, knows all the secrets, knows who our spies are and all of that. You're just telling me this is actually not that important.
That he
made a mistake, and frankly, all he has to do is come to the dispatch box, say, you know what, sorry, mate, I made a mistake. Can we get on with some other stuff now?
Because I think he is an honest man.
And sack everybody else.
And a man of integrity who says it was a mistake to appoint him, and he removed Peter Mandelson. And I think that he is a man of honesty and integrity. And you know what, Trevor? Tomorrow in the House of Commons, he will face all of these issues and questions,
All
and
right.
he will lay all the facts before Parliament.
All right, he's been out and he's had some things to say himself. I just want to check some of them. Is it correct that Peter Manson agreed that the conditions of his appointment should be varied in a way that meant, for example, he wasn't permitted to meet former clients? And if so, why would Oliver Robbins raise a red flag over that? They'd made an arrangement. It was a done deal.
CDO have a different view about who should be recommended for the posting?
By the time we're describing, it was clear that the Prime Minister wanted to make this appointment himself and had, therefore, I understand that the FCDO was informed of his decision and acted upon it, and via the Foreign Secretary sought and obtained the King's approval for the appointment. But we were, in this particular case, as Chris has explained, the Prime Minister took advice and then formed a view himself, and we then acted on that view.
If you're frustrated with political messaging that avoids clear answers and relies on repetition instead of substance, then support the channel. Like the video, subscribe, and share it with others who want a clearer view of what's happening. I also want your perspective. Does this situation represent a temporary media storm, or is it a sign of deeper issues beginning to show? Leave your thoughts below, because the more these moments are examined, the harder they are to dismiss.